Hello. How is everyone doing? Andrew, you're sideways.
Oh, what?
Yeah, your camera.
I got. There we go.
Either that or you learned how to start levity.
There we go.
We'll wait a few minutes.
Andrew.
We'll wait a few minutes for anybody else who's going to join.
Did you get a bunch of RSVPs?
I don't know, Robin. Did we have a lot of RSVPs today?
I don't know. So you do have to register for these meetings for security because there's been Zoom bombings going on, and I really don't want someone to like hijack our screen and write terrible things. So they're password protected, and now you have to register. But the registration emails go to admin at ROGTK because that's where our Zoom account is through.
Okay, got it.
And also, like, this is the registration link that I sent out last week, and I think it's going to take us through summer. So anytime that someone registers, it's going to tell the admin email address. But like, for example, I'm sure Stephanie like registered last week. So now I only get that one registration email, and then she's good to join this one, next one, skip one, join the next one, kind of thing.
Ken actually forwarded a new one to me, so I just re-registered for it.
Cool.
I don't know if he's coming. Feels weird.
No worries.
I mean, you're not technically part of our office, but it's the same as like we've got Team Junio, and Carrie is Arwen's wife, and she is a licensed, well, she's not practicing anymore, but she's an assistant to him. And so sometimes she'll jump on these calls, or I'll share designs or something with her, just because, like, if you're supporting our brokers, we're happy to help support you as well.
Well, I'm trying.
You're doing a great job. I saw your featured listing template that you made, and I love it. And I guess I'd have to get approval by Craig, but I'm pretty sure you're welcome to post any of Craig's listings as featured listings as well.
Okay. Oh, I just did the link through, like, when I go to Ken's site, it pops up. So I just used that, like, link was what I was linking to.
Yeah, I mean, you do, anytime you promote someone else's listing, you do have to get permission from the listing broker to post about the property. But like, if you're looking for a small pool, Ken is able to look up all of the listings for our office. And I mean, you still have to get like writing confirmation via email or text or something, but I'm pretty sure most of our brokers would be fine with you guys promoting their listings on your page.
Well, since that particular, I mean, I'm not trying to hijack your conversation already. Since that particular listing is on your webpage for him, I didn't think I needed any special permission. I just linked directly to that page on your site.
Unfortunately, because it's a post on a different platform like Instagram or Facebook, you still do have to get permission.
Okay.
The difference is on our website, it's the multiples IDX feed. And so we get other people's listings, and then it says courtesy of with their office and their name. It's like part of our NWMLS agreement that we can do that. But when you start getting into advertising, like in print or social media, you do have to get permission.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's, you know, It's one of those things that I have never really heard a broker have a problem with it. Most of the time, brokers are like, "What? You want to promote my listing? That's awesome." But you know, you and Ken are both super personable. Like, I think extending your network of knowing other brokers in the area, or just even reaching out to our brokers for camaraderie's sake, like, can be good.
Okay.
Okay, well, I want to talk about two main things today. Computation of time, and then timelines on the 22A, which is the financing addendum. We've talked about these things before, but they're so important because messing up on computation of time can be detrimental, and we'll kind of talk about why. But anyways, I know we've talked about this before, so you know, if you feel like you have a handle on it, feel free to disregard. But it's a good refresher if it's been a while for you. So anyways, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll go from there. Okay, everyone, can you see my screen? Perfect. So computation of time, this is talking about throughout the forms, there are all kinds of blanks that say within X amount of days, this will happen, or inspection response is due, earnest money is due, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to talk about how those timelines change around weekends and holidays, depending on the amount of time. So any period of time on the day following any period of time starts on the day following the event commencing the period. So what that means is if you have mutual acceptance today on Tuesday, the first day is tomorrow. It doesn't matter if you have it at 11:59 p.m. tonight or 12 a.m. this morning, it starts the next day. So a 7-day time period would be starting tomorrow, starting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it actually kind of makes for easy calculation, because if you have a 7-day timeline, it is the same weekday of the following week that that the day would fall on. Time periods of 5 days or less do not include weekends or legal holidays. Pretty self-explanatory, but if you have 5, 4, 3, anything less than 5, anything less than 6 days, weekends and holidays do not count. So essentially 5 is the same as 7. The only exception would be last week we had Memorial Day. And so hypothetically, let me actually pull up a calendar here. So hypothetically, if you had mutual acceptance on the 19th, right here, then 5 days later would be the 20th, 21st, 22nd, skip the 23rd, skip the 24th, skip the 25th because it's Memorial Day, and then you got 5 days. So in that case, 5 days would actually be 8 days. So anyways, that's just something to remember. So earnest money is a 3-day, you have 3 days to get it into escrow if you're going to deliver it for your buyer, and you have 2 days to get it into escrow if the if the buyer is going to deliver earnest money themselves. So again, if you have mutual acceptance on a Friday, then it would be due on Tuesday. If the buyer is going to deliver it themselves, it's going to be due on Wednesday if you deliver it. Okay, time periods of more than 5 days, so 6 or more, include weekends and legal holidays. I do want to talk about that though, just for a second. Let's say you have a 7-day inspection timeline and you get mutual acceptance on Sunday. The due date of any timeline cannot fall on a weekend. So if you had mutual acceptance on a Sunday, 7 days later, excluding weekends and holidays, would be the next Sunday. But it cannot fall on a Sunday, so it would then just be pushed over to the next business day. So mutual acceptance on the weekend generally extends a 7-day inspection timeline. I'm going kind of fast, so if you have any questions about this, we can discuss it. discussed at the end. Time period end at 9 p.m. on the last day of the specific period. So this is saying that inspection responses are not due by 12 p.m. I'm sorry, by 12 a.m. or 11:59 p.m. that day. They're due at 9 p.m. There's one exception. This part I always get confused on, and I had to refresh myself before this because it's a little trippy. So mutual acceptance up until 11:59 p.m. that day, that's how you calculate when mutual acceptance was, which is obviously really important to know the day that you have mutual acceptance. So the timeline up for mutual acceptance is whatever the whole 24 hours of that day. However, the timeline for an inspection response or other financing timelines that we're going to get into later, those end at 9 p.m. So that's really, really important. If you have an inspection response due today and you get it in at 9:01 p.m., it's done. You missed your timeline and you can't send it in anymore. So that's really important to keep in mind. That's right there. That line is probably the number one thing that I've seen agents mess up on, and it can be catastrophic. And let's just talk really quick about why it's such a big deal. If you have an inspection response and it's due tonight at 9 p.m. and you send it in at 9:01 or you send it in tomorrow, the seller can it's within the seller's rights to just say, no, I'm not doing anything, and you don't have an out anymore. You probably still have a financing contingency, but as we know, the financing contingency only protects you if your financing falls through. You likely don't have any other outs. So anyways, it's really, really important. And obviously your buyer is expecting you to know the timelines. The buyers I've never met a buyer who read through the entire contract, right? So they're not keeping track of the timelines. They're assuming you know what you're doing. So anyways, just something really important to keep in mind. Okay, this line is just talking about if it falls on a weekend or holiday, it moves to the next non-weekend or holiday day. Okay, so that's just saying if you don't have the legal description signed by buyer and seller, that does not delay mutual acceptance. So if you have the Form 21 signed and all the addendas signed, that's when you have mutual acceptance. This also accounts for disclosures too. If like the Form 17 isn't signed, that's not delaying mutual acceptance. As long as the purchase and sale is signed and the subsequent addendas by all parties and all counters are all initialed, then that's when mutual acceptance begins, regardless of the legal description and regardless of disclosures like the Form 17. Okay, and this is just reiterating, I kept talking about the inspection addenda, but this applies for all timelines. So whether it's the financing addendum, which we're going to cover in just a second, or any of the addendas, it always applies. And most forms have certain timelines, like 5 days here, 3 days here, 10 days here, 7 days here. So the computation of time never changes. It never, I get that question a lot, where a broker will ask, is computation of time still applicable in this circumstance or this circumstance? It's always applicable. It never changes. Okay. These are examples, but I think I covered all the examples. I thought one of the frequently asked questions was a good one. What if the buyer and seller reach mutual at 11:30 p.m.? Okay, so that's just reiterating that. If it doesn't matter if it's late at night, mutual acceptance is the day in that 24-hour period. Oh, okay, this was one that was important. Okay, so if I'm just going to actually read it. What if the buyer signs a counteroffer on Monday, May 5th at 11 p.m., but the selling broker does not deliver the signed agreement to the listing firm until Tuesday, May 6th? Mutual acceptance occurred on Tuesday, May 6th, and day one is Wednesday. So that's really important. Mutual acceptance and sending an inspection response, any timeline that has to be satisfied, including mutual acceptance, begins not after your client signs, but after it is delivered to three people: the listing I almost brought my fingers back in the wrong order. The listing broker, the listing firm, and the selling firm. So our firm, the other firm, and the other broker. If you're obviously the listing broker, and it's in reverse, but it has to be sent to all three parties for it to be solidified. So if you're setting up an AuthentiSign, I almost always, especially on a tight timeline like an inspection response, I almost always have the listing firm and the listing broker and the selling brokerage, our brokerage, included as a CC. So if something happens to you and you're unable to, before 9 p.m., get online and forward it onto them, it'll automatically send it. You don't have to have some nice email that you send the inspection response and explain everything with. Always CC the brokerage, especially when you're uptight against the timeline, because then right when your client signs, it'll go right to them. So anyways, that was the last thing on computation of time. So if you guys have any questions about this, let me know. Pretty straightforward. And as a reference, all you have to do to get this information is when you're on the Northwest MLS homepage, you just go up here to the search bar and type in computation. And there it is, understanding computation of time. Okay, so kind of working off computation of time, I want to spend the last part of this meeting talking about the financing addenda. Again, we've gone over this before in previous meetings, but this is, it's a really complicated document. And I was just talking to TJ today for an offer he was writing. And TJ's been in the business 6 years. I've been in business 5 years, and we were still kind of going through paragraph by paragraph because we wanted to make sure we were reading something correctly. So I just want to break down the 22A financing addendum and point out some things to watch for. All right, here it is. So we would be here for hours if I read through every line. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just talk about some important takeaways. So this first portion, Section 1 of the 22A is pretty self-explanatory. You type in, you put in their type of loan, their down payment, and what I want to talk about is this blank right here. It says, trying to find where I have to start reading from. Buyers shall make application for loans to pay the balance of the purchase price and pay the applicable fee if required for the subject property within blank days, so 5 days if not filled in, after mutual acceptance of this agreement. So what this means is if the buyer does not have specific pre-approval for the specific property within X amount of days of mutual acceptance, we'll read the next line. For the purpose of this addendum, application means the submission of buyer's financial information for the purpose of obtaining an extension of credit, including buyer's name, income, social security number, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's just saying that, reiterating, that's just saying that within 5 days, they have to have all that for this specific property. So most buyers, they talk to a lender before they start shopping, they get their pre-approval letter, and then they submit that pre-approval letter with their offer. Okay, so that's great, and that tells the seller that yes, they're qualified, the lender says they're good, and they've checked their finances, but now within X amount of days, they have to specifically apply for that specific property and get specific pre-approval for that specific property and send it to the seller within X amount of days. Here's the scary part about that. A lot of people don't realize that it has to be for the specific property. They think, oh, I'm good because they've already pre-approved. They've already been pre-approved. Well, not for that specific property. So section B says, if buyer fails to make application for financing for the property within the agreed time, changes, and then there's other things here. But if they do that, let's go down, constitutes waiver of paragraph 7. Buyer waives, oh my gosh, buyer waiver of the financing contingency under this paragraph also constitute waiver of paragraph 7. I should just stop reading. It's so confusing when you read it the way the lawyers talk. Let me paraphrase. If you fail to send a pre-approval letter for the specific property within that timeline, the financing contingency is waived. So what that means is if your financing falls through, your buyer loses their job, the appraisal comes in low, and the seller doesn't want to drop the price, et cetera, then if you back out, you lose your earnest money. So it's a pretty big deal. And again, that's something that I've noticed most agents don't realize. Honestly, most lenders don't realize it. And that's kind of scary too, because lenders, they're experts at financing, but they're not experts at Northwest MLS forms. So you have to educate your lender on this and say, awesome, thanks for the pre-approval letter. Now, just want to make sure you know about this, the beginning of the 22A, sections A and B. Show them this and say, so we need to make sure that they're applied, and we send a specific pre-approval letter for that specific property within this many days of mutual acceptance. Okay, that was tough. I really stumbled over my words there, but that is one of the most important portions of this whole form. And again, I see it missed. I see people do it incorrectly all the time. In fact, I've had listings where we get mutual acceptance. I realize we don't have a specific pre-approval letter, and I keep that in mind if we ever need that down the road for negotiating. To be able to say, well, your finance contingency is actually waived because you didn't provide us with this. So anyways, that's something that you can now kind of keep in your back pocket too, if you feel comfortable doing that. Okay, I'm gonna breeze through the rest of this because the rest of this is less heavy, but still important. And likewise, the rest of it that I'm about to explain, most brokers don't utilize this. Most brokers don't take advantage of the forms I'm about to mention. So section 2, at any time, blank days, 10 if not filled in, after mutual acceptance, seller may give once a notice requesting information related to the status of the buyer's loan, and they can use Form 22AL. So let's go to the Form 22AL. So what this is saying is after 10 days or earlier, if you fill in differently, after 10 days, the seller can send this form. And it says, as you see, it only requires the seller's signatures because it's a notice. And it says, pursuant to section 2 in the financing addenda, seller requests that the buyer give notice of the status of the buyer's loan application. Buyer shall use the loan information notice form 22 AP. So let's go there. So you just, if you're representing the seller, this is something that, again, I'd say 4 out of 5 brokers don't do. But I do it just about every single listing that I have. I send out the 22AL. It's not rude. It's not, if it's a hassle, too bad. It is watching out for your seller's best interest, and it's making sure the lender and the buyer are moving forward with the loan. A lot during those 10 days, you're often like going back and forth on the inspection response. So a lot of times the loan can get held up and people aren't following up with the lender. So what it is you're sending this to the buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent sends it to the lender and says, give us an update. So again, it's mind-boggling that 4 out of 5 listings don't do this. They don't send this out. Okay, so then the buyer's agent sends this to the lender, and the lender fills this out. I won't go through the whole thing, but it's just saying, here's the lender, and it says, lender, what have they done so far? They provided recent pay stubs, W-2, 1040, any applicable business tax returns, et cetera, and then other box. And the buyer signs it, sends it back to the seller, and that's it. Going back to the 22A, it says here they can only send it one time. So you can't send this later in the transaction saying, well, where are we at now? Can't do that. You can only send this one time. This timeline, 3 days, says the buyer has that amount of days. So 3 days to give that back. Important, if the buyer fails to do this, the seller can terminate. I apologize. The seller can send the 22AR, which we're about to talk about. Okay, so let's go right into that. So section 3 leads right off of section 2, and it says right to terminate. So this is another thing I send out. Probably 90% of the listings I have, I send this this format out, but 4 out of 5 listing brokers do not, and it doesn't make any sense why people don't do this. So at any time, blank days, 30 if not filled in, after mutual acceptance, seller may give notice that the seller may terminate the agreement at any time 3 days after delivery of that notice. And they use the form 22AR. Okay, that's this form is more scary, you might say, than the 22AL because it uses some pretty strong language. Seller may terminate. So this is one that I normally have my seller sign, and I email it to the buyer's agent with an explanation. I don't just CC them, and sometimes I even follow it up with a phone call. What this is they check the first box, seller's right to terminate. Seller hereby gives notice that the buyer does not waive the financing contingency. Seller may terminate this agreement anytime 3 days after delivery of this notice. So what this is this is just saying the seller can, if the buyer doesn't waive their financing contingency, get out of the contract if they want to. Now, this is really important because a lot of people, I mean, most people think, well, you know, once you get mutual acceptance, the buyer and seller can get out of the contract. Well, the buyer has tons of outs, right? They can get out if Form 17 wasn't filled out properly, if something's up with title, if they find something on the inspection, if their financing falls through, et cetera, et cetera. The seller has no outs. The only out a seller really has is to say, after an inspection response comes in, just say, oh, I'm not going to fix that. And the buyer terminates. But really, the seller has no outs. The seller can't say, deliver notice to the buyer, hey, we're terminating. So what this is this is saying 30 days, again, you can shorten this if you want, but 30 days after mutual acceptance, buyer, we're asking you to waive your financing contingency. By then, the appraisal should be in. You should have all your ducks in a row. And if you back out now, 30 days later, because your financing falls through, that's on you, and I'm going to get your earnest money. That's all this is saying. So anyways, it's a form that I would encourage you to use. It's a little scarier, and you get some pushback from the buyer's agent often. I mean, I have agents in our office calling me quite often saying, hey, I just got a 22AR. What does this mean? Because if you read it, it sounds kind of intense. But all it's saying is you can terminate if you have to, if the buyer does not waive their financing contingency. And that's actually the last thing I want to say about that is the buyer can just waive their financing contingency, and then the seller's still locked in. So all the power is still with the buyer. So anyways, that's another form that if you're representing the seller, I highly advise you use it. And if you're representing a buyer and somebody sends you the 22AR, explain it to your buyer and explain, listen, you don't have to sign this. If you don't sign this, that means that that the seller can back out. Probably won't, but they can. But let's talk to your lender, and if you're feeling really good about your financing, which they should, 30 days after mutual acceptance, you're probably good to waive it. A lot of times, if this form is used, I see it often when a buyer submits a 22Y, like it's already been 30 days since mutual acceptance, and now the buyer can't close in time because they were missing some pay stubs and blah, 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 and they need another week to close. So the listing broker will say, okay, we'll sign your 22Y, but we need you to sign the 22AR saying that you're going to waive your financing contingency. So if it falls through again, if you mess up again, we get your earnest money. That's at least in that circumstance, the buyer and the buyer's agent totally understand what's the purpose of this form. Okay, last thing I wanted to say, well, two quick things. Again, going back to the 22AL, if the buyer does not submit their loan information within 3 days, then that moves up this timeline right here. So that was saying after 10 days, the seller can say, give us an update on the loan. The buyer then has 3 days to give the update of the loan. If the buyer does not do that in time, then instead of waiting 30 days, the seller can give them a 22AR, which normally doesn't happen. Normally they just submit the 22AP and everything's good. Okay, last but not least, this is really, really important takeaway. Whenever you're writing an offer for a buyer, always check this box, in my opinion. This box, appraisal less than sales price, says buyer's waiver of the financing contingency under this paragraph. So again, referring to the 22AR, the buyer can just waive their financing contingency if they get a 22AR. Buyer's waiver of the financing contingency under this paragraph, under paragraph 3, will or will not constitute waiver of paragraph 7. And paragraph 7 is just saying appraisal. If the appraisal is less than the sale price, then the buyer can back out and keep their earnest money, right? This is really scary right here because if you don't check this box, The automatic is it will waive the appraisal. So it's really important. Again, the vast majority of offers I see, they do not check this box. And so if a 22 AR were to go through, what that means is, if your appraisal, hopefully by then the appraisal has already happened, so it's a moot point. But if the appraisal hadn't happened at that point, and then the appraisal comes in $20,000 low or $10,000 low, the buyer can't get out of the contract now. They can, but they're going to lose their earnest money. So anyways, really, that's the last thing I wanted to say, but probably the most important thing of everything I covered, Section C, just make it a habit whenever you're representing the buyer and you're submitting an offer, bottom of the 22A, page 1, Section C, will not. Just always, always, always check that box. That's about all I got, guys. The rest of the form is pretty self-explanatory, but obviously if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to reach out. Section 4 is talking about if the seller is going to pay your closing costs, appraisal less than sales price. This could take a whole meeting going through these few paragraphs, so I'm not going to do that, but this is a really, really important part of the document that explains what happens if the appraisal comes in low. And if you'll indulge me, I'm just going to talk for a couple more minutes. That's probably going to be happening a lot more, maybe not in the very near future, but in the coming year or so as the market likely inevitably dips as we expect. So I would just say expect low appraisals to happen. And when it happens, feel free to call me, but first go into the 22A and read the section 7 of the 22A. It tells you everything. It really it holds your hand and it says, okay, here's exactly what you do if you're representing the buyer. Here's exactly what you do if you're representing the seller. Here are the buyer's options. Here are the seller's options. Go. So this is a really, really important. And the cool thing about these MLS forms is they don't really leave much up for speculation or guessing. It's all pretty self-explanatory. So. All right, everybody, that is all I've got for today. Yeah, that's
I have
about
something really small. If I would like to show Princeton and Stephanie how I use those little square graphics to create videos on Instagram or on Facebook. Is that something you guys would be into seeing?
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. Okay, cool. So give me just a second here. I apologize if you see a glimpse of my personal Facebook feed. It's spicy times right now.
Today would just be mostly black, so.
Yep, which is good. And for anyone listening, if you do want to post, my friend, I had posted the black square earlier with Black Lives Matter as the hashtag, and a problem with that is with the way social media functions, Instagram is not showing those posts as often because they're looking for more dimensional posts that get more attention. So the best ideal hashtag you could use to show solidarity would be hashtag Blackout Tuesday, and then reserve the hashtag Black Lives Matter for posts regarding news or protests. So, all right, let me shut some of my conversations so I can share my screen. I cannot share my screen. So Isaac, if you go to the bottom of the Zoom here where it says share screen, you should be able to change the settings so I'm able to share my screen with people.
So you.
Yeah, so share screen, and then there should be a way to.
Oh, there we go.
Got it? Okay.
Good.
Cool. All right. Sorry, I just re-downloaded Zoom, so I have to approve my system preferences. Sorry, guys. But luckily, what I'm about to show you is going to take like 2 seconds. So let's see. All right, can you guys see my screen? There's a cat in the background, but you can't really see him.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go to Facebook, and then I am gonna go to our Realty One Group Turnkey business page, because that's the business page I would want to be posting on. And then when you click photo video, normally it just gives you the option to pull up your the pictures you've got available, and then it'll show them as like 6 individual slides on one post. The way to get around that is to go to publishing tools. Sorry, because of Zoom being open and a bunch of other tabs, I think my internet's going pretty slow. I'm sure the social sites are pretty busy today as well. Okay, cool. So here, you can see the posts that you've previously made. So I'm gonna go up here to this blue button and hit create post. And it's gonna look pretty similar to the other page, but then when you hit photo video, there's gonna be a bunch of options that pull up. So normal, standard, upload photos, videos. You can also create a photo album. So for brokers, if you're listing a property, I think it might be worth it to do 2 posts. So create a photo album with just no text on the page, just pictures of the property. And then I like to do those little Instagram slides that I make and do create slideshow. So when you hit create slideshow, you can either hit right here or hit right here to hit add photos. And then you can pick from the photos you've already got, but I'm gonna go to upload photos. I'm gonna go to downloads and Devin new Insta Multi. And I'm gonna select all of these. For some reason they're out of order, but they'll pop up down here and I'll be able to rearrange them. In the meantime, while that's loading, let's look over here. So we've got aspect ratio, which is original. You don't really want to mess with the size. The image duration, 1 second is going to be super, super fast for all these slides. You kind of want people to be able to enjoy the property photos. So I like to go to 4 seconds. 5 seconds feels a little long. 3 seconds feels a little short. I feel like 4 seconds is really the sweet spot. I like the fade transition rather than no transition. And it looks like all these pulled up down here. So I've got the front of the property. I know this one's the end slide. Drop that over here. This is the second slide. Drag and drop till you've got it rearranged the way you want. Let's do that guy and that guy. All right, cool. And then over here, if you click music, you can upload music. Make sure it's not licensed. A lot of these musics are super hokey. I like Wonder. I wonder if you guys can hear it. Can you hear it? Okay. So it's like kind of cute. It works, but I prefer Homecoming. And then when you add that, it's just gonna start automatically playing. And then you hit create slideshow. And then up here, remember that Facebook and Instagram are trying to have less commentary in captions. They're trying to just keep them really quick and easy to see. So try to keep it to under like 20 words or so. I would include your hashtags in that. So on Facebook, hashtags don't really have a relevance. People don't really look up stuff via hashtag on Facebook, but it is a really good way to keep your posts sort of organized. So I like to see and keep track of how often or how much I've posted for you guys. So I would do something like check out, and then, you know, make sure to tag yourself or whoever's listing you're promoting, because you want that sort of exponential growth. So it's not just your sphere seeing it, but it's now Devin's sphere. Check out Devin Cloud's listing in Edgewood. I can type message Devin, and remember I'm going to tag her as both her business page and her personal page. So that's our sphere, her business page sphere, and her personal sphere that will see this. Or message for more information. And then I would do hashtag. So that would be my post. And then I always click these buttons down here. Remember that Facebook loves as much like information as you can give. So I would check in, and this is Edgewood, Washington. And then feeling, I usually go down to thinking about and then buying a house. And then you can share this to Instagram if you want. I think Instagram videos don't perform as well as the carousel posts. So what I would do is I would just create a secondary post with the same caption as this video, but have it so people could scroll through. That way they can take their time on the pictures and stuff. So I usually skip the Instagram and just stick to the news feed. From there, I would hit share now. I already did this yesterday, and today's Blackout Tuesday, so we're not going to be doing that. But I would hit share now, and then it would say, your post is being processed. You'll get a notification when it posts. So it usually takes like 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how much, how many slides there are, etc. But yeah, so that's how you do that. I hope.
This is obviously like posting just through Facebook on a business page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I think I normally like run Ken's, I just post on Instagram and have it linked to his Facebook.
So when you do that, what happens is even though Facebook owns Instagram, and probably because of that, it wants to share its own links because those clicks matter to it. So what it'll do is it'll share it to Facebook as a link usually. And I just feel like those links don't perform as well as individual posts in my experience. And it's super annoying, but I just basically like I'll copy and paste all of this, and then I'll put it in like a text message to myself, and then I'll change the Devin Clapp real estate agent at Realty One Group to her Instagram handle, because this link will go away as well. So I'd do it, change it to say Devin. And then once I put this in the Instagram caption area before I post it, I can click by Devin's name and it'll pull up the rest of her username. But then after that, especially on Instagram, I would post it, and then I would like the post, and then I would comment with a caption of just hashtags. So for this listing, for example, I would do hashtag Edgewood, Washington, hashtag Edgewood Wa, hashtag Pierce County Real Estate, hashtag Puyallup Real Estate, hashtag Tacoma Real Estate, hashtag, Puyallup Wa. Like I would start trying to get some discoverable hashtags as well as some like really targeted hashtags to get as much exposure as I can. That doesn't really work the same on Facebook, so I feel like it just doesn't translate as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right, Isaac, are you still there or did he leave? I think Isaac might have had someone show up at the office. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing. All right, well, Stephanie, Princeton, do you guys have any other questions or anything?
No?
No, thank you.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I will send out the video recap of this, and then if you guys have any questions, just shoot them my way.
Yeah, I did text Ken and said he'll want to watch the recording about the contract stuff. So
oh, yeah, for sure.
Another call. Cool. So.
All right.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Of course, my dear. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.